skiing in southern New Jersey? It may seem unlikely today, but at one time, southern New Jersey was host to more than one lift service alpine skiing area. One of these, Holly Mountain, in lower Alloways Creek Township, was only a few miles away from the Delaware Bay. Established in the early 1970s, Holly Mountain Ski Area was one of the most unusual ski areas in the Northeast, owing to the fact that it was barely above sea level, and consisted of a handful of short slopes and trails which wound down from a small sand hill. Despite these geographic limitations, the area sported a double chairlift, snowmaking, and a 3-story lodge. Inclement weather often meant shortened ski seasons, and coupled with rising costs, the ski area would not survive past the late 1980s. Still, for a time, Holly Mountain served as a destination for many South Jersey ski enthusiasts who learned to ski here and practiced their turns before moving on to snowier country. Today, the area remains abandoned, and there's little sign that skiing ever took place here in this unlikely location. Hey everybody, I'm Avery Zucco, and this is another Lost Ski Area tour. This time I'm in Lower Alloways Creek, New Jersey, to take a tour of Holly Mountain Ski Area. So Holly Mountain was opened in 1972. It closed in 1986, which was a pretty short run, but that's not surprising given its location. We're practically in the Pine Barrens, or we're very close to the Pine Barrens in South Jersey. We're not that far from Delaware Bay, and it's a very unusual place for a ski area. There's not really a whole lot of topography here. There aren't really any hills. It's pretty flat. And the ski area, which we're actually at the top of right now, this would technically be the summit. It was an upside down area, so the lodge and the top of the lifts were where you would park and sort of start at. And this is the space that the lodge, I believe that the lodge occupied up here. It's kind of a graded off flat space. I'm not 100% sure of the location of structures here because there's very little left. In 1986 the area closed, and pretty soon after all of the structures were removed and the area was just allowed to grow in. It wasn't maintained or anything like that, and so it's really hard to tell where things were. I believe we're right around where the lodge was, right here. And then this is walking over to the top of the trail, the top of the double lift, which you'll see in a minute. There was one chairlift. There was a Borvig double chair that was installed in '72, and there was also a surface lift. The mountain kind of had two sides. It had sort of an intermediate side, which was accessed by the chairlift, and then the beginner side that was accessed by the surface lift. And this was the top terminal of that Borvig double chair. And this is pretty much all that is left that you would really be able to tell that there was a ski area here, is the foundations for the chairlift. Everything else was removed. And then this is looking down the hill from the top of the double chair. So the trails are all grown in. There are these kind of jeep tracks that sort of follow the path of where the main trails were before. So we're following one of those down now. And as you can see, there's not very much pitch at all. It's a very, very barely even call it a hill. This is one of the footers for the towers, the chairlift towers. You can see the square tower that was really characteristic of Borvig chairlifts in the 1970s. The whole mountain is maybe 90 vertical feet from top to bottom, and the bottom is like literally 10 feet above sea level. You're that close to Delaware Bay. The bottom of the hill is essentially a tidal swamp. That's how how unusual of a place this is for a ski area. It's just hard to believe that this was even here. And certainly looking at it today, it's hard to really imagine what it was like. Another one of the chairlift tower footings. And so the top of the hill is maybe, I think it's 109 feet on the USGS, topo maps. And the bottom is about like 10, 20 feet, something like that. So you're barely getting to like maybe 90, 100 feet of vertical that you were actually skiing on. And this was another of the footers for the chairlift. There were some electrical components there that were buried. Now I couldn't find the bottom terminal. I'm pretty sure this wasn't it. I think this was just another one of the towers. I think this was the only other tower. And then somewhere, I think I'm going to look up the hill here. Yeah, so this is looking up the hill. It's hard to even tell that, you can kind of see the pitch a little bit from that shot, from that angle. And this is the bottom of the hill. Somewhere around here was the bottom terminal. I just couldn't find it. I poked around in the woods for a really long time, and I couldn't find it. So I think it's just been that long. It's so overgrown or buried or something like that, that it's just hard to see anything anymore. But somewhere around here was the bottom of the chairlift, or it's under a bunch of fallen trees or something like that, and it's just kind of obscured. This was, I think, the snowmaking pond. There were these pilings here that I assume there was a pump house and some pump equipment to service the snowmaking system. But I'm not 100% sure of that. The pond is really, really small, and it also doesn't look like it's fed by any water source. Like there's no stream that goes into it or anything, so I'm not sure how it's just like it's groundwater that accumulates there. I imagine if they were pumping out of that for snowmaking, I guess it was enough water. It's a small area, but it just seemed kind of strange for a snowmaking pond. The area did obviously have snowmaking. That was probably the only way they ever got. Very rarely did they get any natural snow. And the only other thing that you can really tell that this was a ski area are those hydrants, and you'll see them like dotted all through the woods. That kind of tell you where the trails were a little bit. But you find those around. So I've walked back up to the top of the hill now, and now we're going back down the other side. This is the beginner side that was serviced by a handle toe. So this side has even less vertical drop now, so 50 or 60 feet. And it kind of just winds its way down through the trees. One of the interesting things is that if you actually look at the area on new satellite imagery, like on Google Maps, you can see where the trails were, because they're all filled in with pine trees. The open areas got filled in with evergreens, which is pretty interesting. So you can actually see the different coloration on the satellite images. And walking through it is really very nice. You walk through these little groves of evergreen trees. But even though the area is really, there's no natural snow, there's no hill, there's all these evergreen trees that kind of give the illusion of an alpine environment. It's kind of nice in a way. And the whole area is very sandy. It's a sand hill after all, and it's just super, super sandy. There's another one of these snowmaking hydrants. And I had to say, I was pretty impressed by these hydrants. I've seen some other really primitive snowmaking systems, and these look like pretty good. The system would have been installed in the early 70s, but it was a purpose-built system. It wasn't some sort of jury-rig thing that they threw together. I imagine they got a decent amount of output from that, because the hydrants look pretty big. I imagine they needed it, being where they were. They really had to have, you know, a good snowmaking system. And so this is the bottom of what would have been the beginner slope over here. And looking back up the hill, again, very, very mellow pitch. And I didn't find any evidence for the surface lift. No foundations or you know, pieces of anything. What I did find, I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, was you can see some snow fencing around the woods here and there, which kind of shows where, you know, there was a ski area here at all. But if you look up, you can kind of make out the tow line here. It's a very, you can kind of see the impression of the tow line going up the hill. At least that's, I think, what this was. Oh, and there's a little holly bush. There's holly all over. I just, you know, owing to the name of the place. And this is a power line cut. This isn't actually related to any of the skiable trails. You can kind of see the hill through the trees here. That's all the hill was. It's just, this is pretty much it. And this was, I think, just the power line that they ran out to service the ski area. It's not used anymore. And right on the right side there, where you see all those evergreens, that was the beginner slope. So I'm walking up through the woods on the side of the beginner slope. And up here, off to the skier's right, at the top of the beginner slope, there was another collection of wires and cables. I think there was another structure here. I'm not 100% sure. I think there was like ski patrol or a ski school. There was something else up here. I don't know for certain. But that's pretty much all that's left. We're heading back up to the top of the area here. So again, a weird little ski area in a very unusual location. Only operated for 14 years. In 1979, ownership switched from, I'm not sure who actually founded it initially, but Lower Alloways Creek Township actually took over in 1979, and they ran it for the last 6 or 7 years of its operation before closing it down entirely. And so this is looking up, this is the parking lot area here, and sort of just heading out back towards the main road. You just walk through the pine trees. And yeah, that is Holly Mountain in Lower Alloways Creek, New Jersey. A really, really interesting ski area in a really, really unusual place. Not a ton of information, not a ton left on the ground anymore, but you know, hard to imagine what skiing was like here, but I'm sure it was a very unique experience. As always, thanks for watching. If you want to, show your support, like this video or subscribe to this channel. I want to do more of these lost ski area videos in the future. And of course, thanks for watching.